Good afternoon, and thank you for joining our SACAP Global webinar. I'm your host, Stephanie Dahan, and I am the Events and Content Coordinator for SACAP. So we all know that communication is easy, but there's so much more to it than you think. It shapes how we view the world, and it impacts our engagement with each other. Let's discover the power of communication and sharpen our skills to achieve personal and career growth, as well as our goals, as I now hand over to Lisa.
Hi, I am Lisa Marcow, and I'm a course facilitator at the SACAP Global Division. And I want to start off by suggesting that we are never not communicating, and that in fact, communication is something that we are doing every day, almost every moment of the day. And so while you're listening to this webinar, you might be sitting there thinking, well, I'm not communicating right now. But is that really true? How often do you stop to take notice of your own thoughts and your inner dialogue, which is actually a component of communication, which is referred to as intrapersonal communication? So let's perhaps consider who you have spoken to today. Your partner, a colleague, family members, friends, peers. Perhaps you ordered a coffee and had a conversation with the barista. Maybe you took public transport and had some kind of interaction with the driver. Now think about the various channels that you might have used to communicate through. Was this face-to-face? Was it through WhatsApp? Any social media platform? Did you send or receive an email? You're currently sitting in a Zoom or a Google Meet, or did you have a conversation on the phone? And I wonder if you've ever noticed how each of these interactions may differ from one another and how they might be quite similar. And what is the purpose of each of these interactions? So let's think about whether you may have needed something from the other person that you were in conversation with, such as a particular skill of theirs or expertise, like a well-made coffee or the transport. Were you seeking some feedback from this person who perhaps might be able to introduce you to some new business model or encourage you to try something new? Are you wanting to share your life experiences with this person so that they can relate to you, and in so doing, you are developing a close bond? Or is this simply a casual exchange where you might be joking around a bit to escape the seriousness of life? In each of these instances, you would be fulfilling one or more purposes of interpersonal communication. These are learning, relating, influencing, supporting, and playing. And as human beings, we are constantly seeking out interaction with others. We're trying to develop social ties. We only need to look back at our recent experiences of lockdown during the COVID pandemic to recognize that we have an intrinsic need to stay connected to people, and that we will find ways to do this and communicate with them, even if we cannot be face-to-face with this person. So what is interpersonal communication? It refers to communication that takes place between two or more people that are in some way connected and at the same time interdependent. It takes place within a relationship, and it impacts and defines the relationship. Or similarly, how you communicate will be determined by the nature of the relationship. So how you communicate with your best friend versus your employer or your potential clients may require very different styles. Let's think for a moment what could happen if we speak to our employer in the same casual and joking way as we do with our friend. Well, you might guess that this could result in some level of misunderstanding, and perhaps our employer not trusting us with significant responsibilities, and so our job could even be at stake. What if we come across as demanding and inflexible with potential clients? Well, these prospective clients may feel that they need to seek someone else who might be more accommodating, flexible, and understanding. And similarly, if we are more formal and submissive with our best friend, this may suggest a level of imbalance in our friendship that would seem inappropriate and unhealthy. So it becomes important to recognize that the way that you communicate and interact with someone will directly influence the kind of relationship that will develop. So if you're warm and friendly, then your relationship is most probably going to be pleasant and positive. Yet if you're hostile, hurtful, and aggressive towards the other person, the relationship could be one of conflict and antagonistic. And what we gather from this is that it is not only what you say, but how you say something that has the potential to make or break our relationships. And what we do know is that when we have fulfilling and rewarding relationships, life is generally more positive and satisfying, and many of our intrinsic needs are being met. So let's take a quick quiz to see what you know about communication. Take a moment to consider whether each of these statements are true or false. Good communicators are born, not made. The more you communicate, the better at it you will be. The best guide to follow when communicating with someone from another culture is to ignore the differences and treat him or her as you would a person from your own culture. The verbal component of a message, i.e. the words, is more significant than the nonverbal component, the body language. And finally, listening is all about hearing. So take a couple of seconds to have a look at those statements, and in your mind, think about, is this statement true or false? So, would it surprise you if I told you that all of these statements are in fact false? Firstly, interpersonal communication is a learned skill. And in fact, it is a practical science. And what this suggests is that we can learn how to communicate effectively with others. How effective you are as a co-worker, an employee, employer, spouse, partner, parent, friend, or any other role that you adopt depends largely on your own interpersonal skills. It is a skill that is crucial for personal and professional success and advancement. The more skills that you have at your disposal, the greater your options are for communicating in any situation, especially in the difficult and conflicting ones. And I would argue that it is never too late to learn and develop competency in our communication. And even if you started out as a poor communicator, there is most certainly hope. Secondly, it is not about how much or the quantity we communicate, but rather about the quality of our communication. You can practice a skill over and over again. And in essence, you can get really good at doing something rather poorly. And practice only makes perfect when we practice the correct skills. So we need to learn to read the feedback that we receive from other people when we communicate, to know when we might need to adjust our style and try something new. And so it makes sense then that the more you know about interpersonal communication, the more insight and the more knowledge you will gain about what works and what doesn't work, and thus you can be flexible and adaptable in your approach. Thirdly, there are many cultural differences that we most certainly must consider. And these vary from our value systems to the rules that govern us or the different meanings that we might assign to words or behaviors. And to simply disregard these would be disrespectful and inconsiderate, let alone result in misunderstanding and ambiguity. Culture provides the context for all of our communication. It's the lens through which each of us sees the world. And there's definitely not a one-size-fits-all approach to communication, because we need to learn to bridge the gap between the different ways in which people see the world. Fourthly, it might surprise you to learn that a message is comprised of only 7% words, 38% vocal, and 55% nonverbal. And it actually suggests that we will always believe what we see over what we hear. So the nonverbals are in fact the most revealing of any message, especially when they do not match the words that are spoken. So you may have all the correct words to convey your message or presentation articulately. However, it's the delivery of this that will be far more impactful, and it's going to be what people remember the most. Finally, listening is more than just hearing. Unless you have a specific hearing impediment, most of us can hear, but the same cannot be said for listening. Listening requires active engagement, seeking to understand before responding, and paying particular attention to what is not being said. It requires an intricate set of techniques that need to be developed and demonstrated in a conversation. And at this point, I would like to introduce you to some important principles of interpersonal communication and encourage you to really think about what the opportunities are that this creates for us. Interpersonal communication is inevitable. We communicate even though you may think that you are not communicating. All behavior is potentially communication. So when you remain silent, this is nonverbal communication. And as I said earlier, it's 55% of a message. Indeed, the nonverbals can be misinterpreted or perceived inaccurately by the other person. But at the same time, it carries a message in the mind of the listener and the receiver. Interpersonal communication is irreversible. This is an interesting one because what you communicate remains communicated. And in fact, you cannot uncommunicate it. So sometimes we might say something and want to retract what we said. Or if it's on a WhatsApp message, there's the joys of the delete for all. But what if someone's already seen the message? So we really need to be careful to not say things that later we might be excusing ourselves for or wishing to withdraw. Interpersonal communication is unrepeatable. Communication is an ever-changing process. Everything that is involved in communication is changing. You, the people you're communicating with, the environment, the context. And if all of these results are interdependent, then any change in one of the elements will have a ripple effect on all the others. And as a result, you never really get a chance to recapture that exact moment ever again. So what it means is that we only make a first impression once, or that we have one chance to effectively communicate what we communicate in that moment. And so we really, really need to make the most of that opportunity. So with all of this in mind, it really should encourage each of us to become more mindful in our own communication. And by this, I'm suggesting that we become consciously or mentally aware of the communication choice that we have, that we consider why one option may be better suited than the other, and that we begin to recognize the deep impact of our communication on those around us who are going to be judging us on the basis of our communication competency. I came across these words by John Powell: communication works for those who work at it. And in closing with these words, I encourage you again to think about what an important tool communication is to your own success. So some readings say that communication is a soft skill, a people skill, and I would agree with that, but I would also argue that it is an essential skill to work at. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much, Lisa, for those wise words that you've shared. I couldn't agree more with you when you were talking now about how interpersonal communication skills isn't just a soft skill, it's actually an essential skill and essential for our success. And I think sometimes, as you were saying, we like to think we're good at communicating well, but are we really? And we can always improve on how we communicate with others, and therefore improve our potential for success too, in our lives, in our careers, and in our families and communities too. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes to share a little bit about our interpersonal courses that we have on SACAP Global. Hopefully you've had a look at our website already. If any of you haven't, have a look. It's global.sacap.edu.za. And there's lots of courses there and lots of detailed information about our courses there as well. But just very briefly, in particular with our two interpersonal communication ones that Lisa's been speaking about, we have one called Effective Interpersonal Communication, and then a second one called Advanced Interpersonal Communication. Effective interpersonal communication is really all of the basics around communication and how we can communicate better. How do we listen well? How do we respond to others? How do we read nonverbal language? And being able to actually analyze and pause for a moment and go, are we really as good at these things as we like to think we are? We can be great at the technical skills in our roles, but often it's this interpersonal element that really kind of moves our career forward. And so maybe we need to take some time and actually either study this more formally to enhance how we do it, but just really to get better at how we engage with others in life. And then building on that, we also have a course called Advanced Interpersonal Skills, although you can start there if you want. You don't have to do the first course and then the second. You can do them in any order. And this one tends to go a bit deeper into interpersonal communication. So things like, conflict and how to manage conflict well, how to understand and work with power dynamics in relationships, looking at different types of relationships, marriage, professional relationships, family relationships, and how to work and engage in these in a way where we have better awareness and are better skilled in order to make these effective and productive in our lives, not just for our own benefit, but for everybody's benefit as well. And both of these courses can be stuck together. And what we mean by that is they are equivalent to a module from our Bachelor of Applied Social Science at SACAP. So if somebody does both of those courses and they want to actually study a degree with us and they want to apply for the Bachelor of Applied Social Science, you can actually apply for RPL for exemption from that module if you've done both of these micros. So it's also building towards your future studies if that's something that you're interested in. And our courses are on the Open Learning Platform, which is an international platform. You can see in the slide here, there's all kinds of other institutions that are also on that platform. They're great. They quality assure the courses. So we've got a lot of confidence in our courses. They're not only equivalent to our qualification modules, but they've also been approved by Open Learning as open credit courses where they've met certain quality criteria as well. So you're getting rigorous, good online courses with SACAP Global, which is fantastic. And really at the end of the day, SACAP Global is all about helping people to upskill. So to add on into those areas that you may feel that you've got gaps, be it interpersonal skills, be it applied psychology in some kind of way, business management, human resource management, go have a look at our website and see what we offer to help you upskill, to just get that edge, put that edge on yourself in your career and to stand out from those around you. Thank you, everyone. Should we move over to a Q&A, Lisa?
Thanks so much, Karolyne and Lisa. This has been such a wonderful and informative session. Just a reminder to everybody, if you do have any questions, not only about the courses, but as well as interpersonal communication for Lisa, please feel free to ask them in the chat box or in the Q&A box, which is located at the bottom of your screen. Claire has actually just posted a lovely comment in the chat box. She says, "It is such a wonderful platform. I really enjoyed my last course with SACAP." Thanks so much for sharing with us, Claire, and we do hope that you take advantage of the discount coming your way and join us for another course. Karolyne or Lisa, either one of you could weigh in on this one. Someone has asked us, what do you suggest I do as I want to do art psychology? So maybe which short course would be a good interleading or start for our attendee?
Okay, so I can jump in here. that's a very beautiful thing to study. So that's very exciting. We don't have a specific course at the moment around art psychology. However, probably as a starting point, I would definitely recommend our Intro to Human Behavior course, because it helps us understand who we are as people, how to engage with other people. And then that also definitely influences what we are putting out into the world, right? Because it's when we've got a good understanding of ourselves and who we are as people that we can then, express ourselves in the best ways possible. But yeah, I think what I can suggest at this stage for kind of art therapy in particular is, and I don't know if you've got a grounding in psychology already, which would be important for that, but yeah, have a look. It's very much in a lot of the non-traditional spaces in psychology. So you will probably find some really nice short courses out there on it, versus necessarily going a traditional route with an institution. Lisa, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think just to echo what you said, Karolyne, just that I'm sure that there are a lot of other courses around by perhaps art therapists. And so it is definitely doing a search on that. There's not one particular one that comes to mind for me right now.
So somebody's asking in the chat I'm seeing here around considering a career change and wanting to know if you have career counselors who can assist or give guidance. So, I mean, I would definitely suggest that you do reach out to our admissions teams who can let you know what we offer and the general lay of the land, and also help you figure out who it is you might want to get in touch with us for more information about careers if you're wanting to do assessments and that sort of thing, to help give you insight around what you want to do. And then I'm seeing another question. So at least I'm just going to jump on this one as well. Are we able to stack these two courses with the two courses in around human behavior that SACAP Global also offers? And yes, so the two human behavior ones, you'd be able to get exemption for an intro to Psych A module, and then the interpersonal skills one, you'd be able to get exemption, apply for exemption for our interpersonal skills module in the degree. So absolutely, those 4 courses would stack into 2 respective modules. Great question, thanks.
Karolyne, I see we do have a comment in the chat box, discussing the fact that courses on these topics are available on other platforms. Could you perhaps maybe reiterate on the accreditation or just the classification of our courses with open learning, please?
Yes, sure. So, I mean, I think in this day and age, there's so much out there, right? I mean, we're bombarded with information from all angles. So, you can go and watch YouTube videos, for example, which I know a lot of us do, right? We want to know something. You ask Google, right? We learn a lot from Google. Watch videos, that kind of thing. And everything has its place. And for us at SACAP Global, what we are doing is the only way that you'd be able to even RPL into any modules in our degrees, as I've been speaking about, is that they're equivalent. So our courses are highly practical. They are also academic. They're at the same level as one of our degree modules. And so we have quite robust courses that do require time and commitment, because it's quite in-depth learning on various topics. And as I said, I mean, SACAP, we've been running online courses for a long time now, and we do it very well, in my humble opinion. And Open Learning, with their Open Credit approval, has again just endorsed that we meet all the quality criteria for an excellent online course. So yeah, with anything in life, right, there's many options out there. Explore, find what fits best for you, and yeah, start to build your success in your career. I mean, I think gone are the days where you study your first degree and then you never have to study again, right? The world changes too quickly, and we change as well, and we want to grow, most of us. So it's always good to look around to see what's out there to upskill us, for professional reasons and for personal ones as well. Both are equally important, so that we're slowly growing and achieving our potential. Good. I don't see any more questions, Steph, is that right?
Yes. So I think we have come to the end of our Q&A session, but if you have any questions that you maybe wouldn't have liked to ask on this platform, or just something that you think about after this webinar, please feel free to pop it in the chat box while we leave it open and our team will contact you. Alternatively, you can send an email to globalsupport@sacap.edu.za and we will answer you over there. Thanks once again for joining us for this session. Thank you to Lisa and to Karolyne for the wonderful wealth of information. I'm sure we're all leaving here a little bit more mindful about our communication. Follow us on social media for updates on any of our new short courses, micro credentials, or nano courses that might be launched, as well as if you just like to follow any new launches for our qualifications. Thank you once again for joining us, and we hope you have a lovely day further.